we in all of this is so that we may be in fellowship with God. The holiness of Christ and His sacrifice at the cross allows us to come before the God of all creation, in the sense that the blood of Christ covering us, we are looked at through Christ and seen as holy. And again, justified. You've heard me say this so many times. Justified, never sinned. Every time we share in communion, we are acknowledging this. A picture of Christ's sacrifice tied to the promise of our resurrection and His second coming. And so even in coming to communion, we need to be preparing ourselves. And by the way, I want to suggest to you something that was, again, pointed out to me by my professor in Bible college, Dr. Ratcliffe. And he was actually Reuben Ratcliffe. He had Jewish ancestry, and he was amazed at what Christ has done and seeing Christ as the Messiah. And he wanted to point out that we are to come to church prayed up. Does that make sense? Think about this. In 1 Corinthians, Paul writes about communion in chapter 11, but they were having a problem with communion. They were abusing it. And Paul was trying to straighten things out for them. But what I would like to share with you is just a thought here. Verse 28 of chapter 11 says, "Let a person examine himself, then and so eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For anyone who eats and drinks without discerning the body, eats and drinks judgment on himself." In other words, we're to come to communion with the idea of having already examined ourselves and seen our shortcomings for the day at least. And it was suggested by, like I said, by Dr. Ratcliffe that we should do this before we ever get to church. Lord, open my heart to who I am, that I might hear the things I need to hear today to allow me to come to the table in communion with you. How important is the idea of communion? It's extremely important. There were people in the Corinthian church that because of their abuse, it died. And judgment. Doesn't mean they lost their salvation, but it means that in judgment they died. Communion, having it every week, some people think that minimizes it. We should only do it once a month or once a quarter. This is the focal point of what Christ has done for us. We should do it as often as we gather together, which is, at least every Sunday. And as we come to communion, it says to examine ourselves and then eat the bread and drink of the cup. And so that's where we come to communion. And by the way, I would like to share that we have communion today. There's 2 trays up here. Are we able to do a song yet? Okay. We have a song It's called Glorious Day. And I just want to emphasize something that we don't always talk about at communion, and that is the last verse of this song. It says, "One day the trumpet will sound for his coming. One day the skies with his glories will shine. Wonderful day, my blessed, beloved one, bringing my Savior, Jesus is mine." I'm talking about the second coming of Christ. When we look at communion, we look at what he has done. He died on the cross. What he is doing, he's sanctifying us. And what he will do, he will complete the work so that we will see him face to face as he is, and we will be complete, without sin, in fellowship with God for eternity. And if you've shared in the heaven course, that is, that's amazing what is ahead of us. So what we have today is to share in communion. Like I said, we have two trays up here. One is a packet that has the bread and the juice in it. The other is two little cups together, communion cups together, one with the bread and one with the juice, whichever you're most comfortable using. While we're singing this song of the Glorious Day, we invite you to come up and pick up communion. Hold it until we've all been served, and we'll share together. So let's go ahead and have that song, and we'll invite you to come and pick up the communion.